Okay, what's up? What do you guys
Uh,
have? Freak
uh,
my bean, y'all.
okay.
Well,
Okay, Nate.
I'm
Freak.
gonna, I'll freak some beans. Freak some beans, my
Freaks and
favorite
beans.
campfire eating food stuff.
Freaks and
Uh,
beans.
well, we're going to. I was curious about what kind of monsters that Arabs feared besides the IDF. Uh, the news. So I was looking for through some Arabic mythology. What y'all know about the Nasnas?
Less than zero. I've never
Nothing.
heard those words, and I look for
Right.
weird words like that.
Well, the Nasnas is according to jinnfandom.com, a monstrous creature in Arab folklore. According to
Oh.
Edward Lane, the 19th century translator of the 1001 Nights, a Nasnas is half a human being having half a head, half a body, one arm, one leg, with
Ah!
which it hops with much agility.
Oh
Not much agility.
With much agility. Yeah, it's a half, like down the center, half man, or probably half woman. There's a different
no!
set of stories that involve some sort of half woman kind of. Believed to be the offspring of a demon called a sheik. The sheik is apparently one of the three jinn types. They're like a lesser type that is. Some things say malformed, some of them say half formed. So I'm not sure if they're also supposed to be half things. I think they're supposed to be just a mishmash of humanoid characteristics that
Sure,
are
sure.
all kind of all over the
They
place.
kind of loved to do that back then. They loved to do like a half guy or a guy with an extra half, or
Yeah.
half a guy on half a bat.
Yeah, when the mate with a human being, the offspring is one of the Nasnas.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Although there is the 1001 Arabian Nights Nasnas is a much different thing
Okay, what is
and way
that?
weirder.
What?
So
Oh no!
it's well, maybe it's not way weirder. But so I went looking.
It's all halves.
It's from the story of the sage and the scholar,
Okay.
and I went and found it, and I don't specifically go looking for the worst possible public domain translations of old books,
But you
but
should.
but this is one of them.
Sure.
Uh, so the story basically involves there's a kid, a young boy who goes to hang out with his old wizard to learn wizard tricks and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he finds out that the king of the area's daughter, the princess, is very beautiful. And without ever seeing her, just on hearing about her, he falls in love and he decides that's what he has to do. Is he has to go
Good
see
idea. Great. I honestly, the first catfish, this feels like.
So eventually, at first the sage is like, no, you can't do it. That's insane. You're a fool. Stick around. He tries giving him like all kinds of crazy things that he has to take care of. But the kid's heart is set on seeing this lady. Eventually, it says his heart was softened, and he had ruth upon the case of his scholar and pitied his condition, and at last said to him, O my son, dost thou truly long to look but a single look at the Sultan's daughter? Quoth he, Yes, O my lord, and quoth the other, Come hither to me. Accordingly, he came up to him, and the sheikh produced a coal pot and applied the powder to one of his scholar's eyes, who, behold, forthright became such that all who saw him cried out, This is a half man.
Oh, God.
So he just blacked out one eye with magic powder, cut in half.
Well, all right.
Then the sage bade him go about the city, and the youth obeyed his commands and fared forth. But when as the folk espied him, they cried out, a miracle, this be a half man.
I'm talking about a half man. All right.
And the more the youth walked about the streets, the more the folk followed him and gazed upon him for diversion and marveled at the spectacle. And as often as the great men of the city heard of him, they sent to summon him and solaced themselves with his sight and said, loud to the Lord, Allah createth whatso he wisheth and commandeth whatso he willeth, as we see in the fashioning of this half man.
Wow. What a bunch of dumb assholes.
Yeah, so upon seeing a guy walking around cut perfectly in half, they figure, oh, he's not a horrific monster. He is a miracle of God.
He's a miracle of God.
Let's all go look at him.
We want to see his face.
The youth also looked freely upon the harems of the grandees, he being fairer than any of them. And this case continued till the report reached the Sultan, who bade him be brought into the presence, and on seeing him marveled at the works of the Almighty. Presently the whole court gathered together to gaze at him in wonderment, and the tidings soon reached the queen, who sent a eunuch to fetch him and introduce him to the seraglio. The women all admired the prodigy, and the princess looked at him, and he looked at her. So his fascination increased upon him, and he said in his secret soul, "An I wed her not, I will slay myself." After this, the youth was dismissed by the Sultan's harem, and he, whose heart murmured the love of the king's daughter, returned home. So that's the literary version of the Nasnas that exists, that's out there. It's also, that story goes on to where the kid, he decides that he has to touch her. So the scholar blacks out both of his eyes to make him invisible. And then he goes and he touches the princess, and she says, "Satan has touched me." And her mom flings dung into the fire pit, and it stings the kid's eyes so much that he cries until he's no longer invisible. And then they he ends up getting paraded around on the back of a horse and shit. Some other stuff happens. He marries her in the end.
In the end, overall, it's a pretty good romantic comedy.
But yeah, there's also the demon version that are the sheep human offspring.
Oh, we're talking.
And there's also, it says in the Siratu Nabi and the Kisasu Anbiya, there's a kind of animal with the form of a man. They call them meluf, that have a beautiful face but cannot speak and have no power of understanding. And men seize them and go in unto them and beget sons of them. But they, the sons, are dumb.
God. Oh my God.
And
crazy.
I think these things are tied together because they're beauteous, kind of. Because like that kid, the half kid from 1001 is the fairest man in all of the kingdom.
Makes
also
sense.
Fairman.
So because otherwise I can't really see why these two stories are supposed to be connected according to this article, unless they're also maybe derived of some sort of jinn parentage.
Sure.
Anyway, back to jinn fandom. The Nasnas is built like half a man. It has one hand and one foot. He walks by, jumps, and he runs with great speed. Once it was found in Yemen and sometimes in non-Arab countries. The Arabs hunted and ate it. An Arab legend says that one day one day some travelers arrived in a country where there were many Nasnas. They cornered one and they killed and roasted it, and it was very fat.
That shit was dank.
Yeah. When they had sat down to eat, one traveler said, "How did the Nasnas grow fat?" Another Nasnas who was hiding near there in a tree began to respond. "He ate mastic, which is what made him fat." The hunters, tipped off by this explanation, seized that Nasnas and killed him. Another then said, in a tree where he was hiding, if he had presence of mind, he would have been talking to himself instead of you. The hunters took him in turn and killed him. At that moment, a fourth Nasnas, hidden in a hole in the ground, shouted, "I am cleverer, so I will say nothing." He was immediately seized.
He said that out loud.
Dummy.
Travelers were thus provided with food. They say the Nasnas feed on fruits and plants, and they are able to withstand thirst. And apparently are easily tricked by just of their own volition. And in the country of Misr, there is a kind of ape much resembling a man. These they call Nasnas. In body, it is like a large ape, but the whole of their body is hairy, and they have tails. And the species Maluf, described above, contrary to the species of ape, live in eastern countries and has no tail, and the hair on their bodies is as it is on a man. and they have beautiful countenances. And in Farsi, this is known as the Nasnas. So I guess that's the two things.
Dang.
Just the regional.
Yeah, it's all over the
translation.
map here, the Nasnas.
In a hadith, it says that a tribe of Aid rebelled against their prophet, so Allah turned them into Nasnas, each one of whom had a hand and a foot on one side of the body, and who hopped like birds and grazed like beasts.
Bummer.
It's also said that those have become extinct, and that what currently exists of that form are separate species, or that there are three kinds, Nas, Nasnas, and Nazanis, or that the Nazanis are the females, or that they are a higher form than the Nasnas, or that they are the Yajuj and Majuj,
It
or that
sounds
they
like
are
just it sounds like just being like turned into a really dumb asshole
yeah, pretty much.
by Allah. It's just like, hey,
Yeah, I mean,
you think you're such hot shit? You think that people are so great? Guess what? This was the first draft, biatch.
Yeah, well, it's kind of, I mean, since there's genies involved, it all kind of goes back to Allah cursing somebody.
Standard.
Or this one thing where it's just a trick that a kid uses to play on somebody.
Mm-hmm. Some little son of a bitch.
There is also a Somali variant called the Zungruluf or Hungruf, which resembles the Nasnas and it has the same characteristics and features, and is believed to kill a person just by touching them, and the person is fleshless mere seconds later.
Well, you don't want that, even a little.
But it does seem like they're easily dispatched, but then also they have a kill touch, and they've been able to beat people to death with their one arm.
Boy, they
really
do have
fast.
They do have that kill touch, huh? It's tough.
According to the Paranormal Guide, the Nasnas is quite agile on its one leg, uses its tail to assist with balance in the movement, sometimes appears with a single bat-like wing.
Whoa, crazy.
Yeah.
I'm getting like what's that weird? I'm getting Popobawa vibes off of this guy.
A little bit.
Oh yeah, it's
that weird cycloptic bat that fucks people.
I mean, it is a one-eyed thing with bat wings and definitely bones.
Yeah.
It says more. He would show himself as a decrepit old man who would seek the assistance of willing prey to help carry him over water passings. Nasnas would then change form and drown his victims.
Fucking dick.
The Nasnas never speak. This is another thing that relates to the Maluf. They don't have any vocal cords. They do, however, have the ability to utter a strange, high-pitched hooting noise, which is terrifying to hear. It says, depending on the volume and tone, you can discern the Nasnas' current emotional state.
Okay. All right. How about that?
There's also, do you want the SCP entry?
Absolutely, yes. I want the SCP
Yes,
entry.
I do.
SCP-3341, Arabian Nasnas, aka Somali Hungruf. Special containment procedures. SCP-3341-A and 3341-B are housed in the Eastern Province Settlement Zone and Ogaden Settlement Zone, respectively, in collaboration with the governments of Saudi Arabia and Ethiopia. Mobile Task Force Stigma 9, evolved from naturally occurring gears, levers, and pulleys, is dispatched to Ogaden Settlement Zone to invalidate all propaganda spread by SCP-3341-B1 and or the Cogworks Orthodox Church.
This feels like one of those SCPs where you need to know like 5 other SCPs.
Yes. Instances of SCP-3341-B1 are to be regarded as hostile entities holding a de facto object class of Keter. Mobile Task Force Gamma 4, the Iconoclasts, is to be mobilized in East Africa tasked to combat SCP-3341-B1 instances. While capture of live SCP-3341-B1 instances is preferable, termination is permitted. Captured SCP-3341-B1 instances are to be kept in Site-368. If applicable, SCP-3341-B1 instances are to have non-vital mechanical implants removed and undergo rehabilitation. Said rehabilitation program will consist of literature authored by MTF Glottalstock 9 and a modification of Program Arduinosis 9001.
So if you guys don't know what SCPs are, they're kind of...
I was waiting for somebody to jump in with this description.
They're kind of these user-generated stories, if you will, classification pages for anomalous artifacts and creatures. And a tip for reading them is to skip the containment procedures and just go to the go to the bottom part.
Yeah, you can't just go to the description, which this actually is interesting and does give a whole nother side to the Nas, literally a whole other side to the Nasnas.
Hey, all right.
SCP-3341 is a sapient omnivorous mammalian species which undergoes metamorphosis into a humanoid appearance as part of its life cycle.
Whoa.
Yeah. It is endemic to areas within the Arabian Peninsula, Horn of Africa, and Iranian Plateau. Due to differing socio-political contexts, SCP-3341 communities in the three regions possess distinct cultural differences from one another and are given the following sub-designations for ease of categorization. That's the A, B, B1, and C. All juvenile specimens possess one arm and one leg each, with each limb having 5 digits. Their feet share notable similarities with those of species belonging to the family Leporidae, or rabbit, allowing them to move via jumping.
Whoa.
The average distance, there is I read another thing somewhere where they said that they do occasionally appear with rabbit tails.
Ooh, weird.
Tasty.
Which is interesting. Yeah. The average distance traveled by a juvenile specimen within a single leap is 4 meters, which is what, 12 feet something? 12 feet.
About, yep.
The head is roughly hemispheric in shape and consists of one eye, one nostril, one ear, and one mouth. Nostril and mouth are usually placed at the extremity of the head. There's no hair.
Yeah.
They exhibit a unique form of sexual dimorphism. Male juvenile specimens resemble the right side of the human body, whereas female juvenile specimens resemble the left side.
Whoa.
And they, of course, the metamorphosis involves one male juvenile instance and one female juvenile instance, merging their bodies, memories, and consciousness together. The process is optional and requires mutual consent from the participants involved.
Whoa.
Way to go, SCP. Courtship is primarily centered on the measurement of a potential mate's height, wherein partners of similar heights tend to have a higher probability of successful metamorphosis. A larger difference in height between partners is held to be positively associated with increased risks during metamorphosis, causing a longer period of metamorphosis to form to the adult instance or death of one or both of the participants.
What does it turn into?
Well, it just turns into a regular person.
Just a guy? God damn it.
Yep, just Joe down the street. He's your neighbor.
Fucking...
During metamorphosis, the partners will align themselves such that the male partner is lying on the right side of the female partner. Once aligned, the partners will rub their bodies against each other to create lacerations wherein their flesh will be conjoined.
Ah,
that's
scary.
The two instances, mouths, cloacae, parts of their skeletons, and internal organs, along with the torso, will merge together. Other bodily changes include the growth of body hair and shortening of both their feet. The process usually requires 1 week, typically taking place in an isolated, enclosed environment. Due to the long duration of the energy required, juvenile specimens tend to consume large quantities of food prior to metamorphosis. And then, in terms of physical appearance, a typical adult specimen just is identical to the average human. Although it says alterations to the adult specimen's legs have reduced its jumping capacity to that of an average human, it just becomes a regular person.
Has to get a job.
It's kind of
the world around. Now has to.
My dark metamorphosis is complete. I am Phil. Hi, I moved in down the street. I'm divorced. I like model planes.
It says regardless of sociocultural group, adult instances adhere to a class system based on its life cycle. They initially,
just like real life.
Typically initially serve as military, manufactural, or agricultural roles, and then as they become adults, they become priests, literati, diplomats, and community leaders.
Whoa, crazy.
Okay, so doing good for the community, kinda.
So weird. SCP is fucking crazy, and I highly recommend getting way, way into it. I do think we have to wrap it up for this episode. Is there anything that people need to know about the Nasnas before they go out there into the world, armed with this information?
Well, I guess it seems like if you need to eat a bunch of it, if you need to feed a bunch of people, they will naturally trick themselves into becoming your prey.
Hmm.
But if you're just out there being a dickhead, they will either touch you and skin you, or beat you to death with their one good arm.
Sure. Okay. Well, if you see somebody and you suspect them to be one of these half people, say, "Hey, Phil," and make sure they turn towards you and make sure they point at themselves with that other arm, and then say, "No, never mind. Sorry." Whew, close one.
Long Phil.
Full person. Guys, that does it for this week's episode of Werewolf Radar. Thank you so much for your continued support of our strange doings over here. Dark Council members, we love you. We need you. Kothgarno Shothnaga. You know what to do with these power words, this activation phrase. If you're interested in becoming part of the Dark Council, you can listen to our additional podcast episode every week. Sometimes you get art, sometimes you get other shit, and also you get an open door pass to come hang out with us in the Zoom room when we record episodes and just kind of kick it and do fun shit like that. So if you're interested in that, check out our Patreon. You can give us as little as $4 a month, and it goes to good stuff, keeping the show going, and
merch cost,
like merch
donation
cost.
Every quarter to a good cause.
Donation. So check it out. And for those new members of the Patreon, thank you so much for signing up.
Oh yeah, we got a new one recently. We'll shout your name, give you a special something on the next week's patron shout out
when the shout outs are upon us. But until then, thank you to Chuck from Snappy Little Numbers for our intro and outro song, and thank you to the listener, for listening and telling your friends and rating us on iTunes,
sharing it on the socials,
keeping the veil, keeping the secret, and maintaining order out there in the world.
We are the ones to do it. Join us as we do it.
We will prevail against Universe A any day now. Until next time, as always, punch the sky, Space Joe.